Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Roundup. I am your host, David Fox. With me, as usual, is UberHansen, and we are here live to talk about probably one of the best wins of the Sean McDermott era. The Buffalo Bills went into Detroit working off of one practice during the entire week and got a win against a number one seeded currently Lions team that was on an 11-game winning streak. And they won. They won the game. I don't know if anyone else saw that, but the Bills beat the Lions.
Did you just freeze like that? I think David may have frozen a little bit here. Oh, there you go. You're back now, buddy. But you did whisper some nice sweet nothings into our ear.
There you go. It's just what a game. I mean, right from the gun, the Bills were ready to attack and dominate a depleted Lions defense that, I say depleted, and they are, but the secondary is still basically intact. They got back Aleem McNeil, obviously, who's a big part of what they do, and Levi Onwuzurike. So it wasn't super terrible necessarily. The biggest issue is just at linebacker for them, I think, because they just don't have I don't think they have any of their starters at all. And that just creates so many problems with misdirection and especially if your offensive linemen are able to get to that second level, it's kind of game over, which is largely what happened. Like, we're going to talk about Josh Allen and all the amazing things that he did, but I feel like what the running backs did as well should not be overlooked, and it's kind of not being talked about enough right now, and we'll get into all that. But before we do, Uber, how are you?
Yeah, I mean, I picked the Bills to lose this game because I looked at that Lions offense and I thought there's no way they can stop them. And statistically, they didn't really stop them, but the game flow kind of dictated that. So there's some middle ground there, I think. But what I did kind of miss out on my analysis was that Josh Allen is in a mode right now where he's essentially unstoppable. And I watched yesterday's game. I don't know about you. I think that might be the best I've ever seen him play. I think that might be his best game. And my best game coming into this was against the 49ers in 2020. Yesterday, though, he was just – it didn't matter what the Lions did. It didn't matter what was happening with his wide receivers on the field. He was breaking out of the pocket. He was buying time. He was delivering throws at every single level. He was running when he needed to. He should have had 5 touchdowns. He did not have 5 touchdowns because of a holding call.
Because Adrian Hill is a goober. Like, there's I put this out because I was just so mad after that got called back yesterday, where I was like, Adrian Hill is the kid who reminded your teacher that you have homework. Like, Adrian Hill always checked your hall pass. Adrian Hill told your RA, hey, something kind of smells like weed in that dorm. Like, it's like, what, how, so bad. And so he's refereed 3 different Bills games this year, the Jets game, the second Dolphins game, and this game. I know for sure in that Dolphins game, he had the 2 back-to-back holding plays that took away another amazing Josh Allen play. And it was just like, and it was the same sort of thing where all it is just like the defender going to the ground.
Oh, it was that call. Yeah.
I mean, it's the same sort of thing. It really is. It's just, they're just, so many referees are so bad with understanding what holding is. And I'll be honest, I think some of it is just in the wording of what holding is, because it's so vague and broad that it's just like, well, what do you want them to do with that? But still, it's not a holding call. It's terrible. It's a terrible call. And it took away a goofy ass but amazing play by Josh Allen. A Dr. Pepper push pass competition.
I don't know why he did that. Like,
it was so funny. I think he just panicked. I was like, someone's up.
He's in his bag right now, dude. He's doing whatever he wants. Like I don't like Colin Cowherd. I don't like him. He's a like shock jock. He says whatever he wants to draw views and stuff. And to some extent, when he said what he said today, he's doing it for views and clicks. I'm starting to believe what he said, though. He said that Josh Allen is the most talented football player he's ever seen. He goes, you can take Patrick Mahomes, you can take Tom Brady, you can take John Allen, you do all those players. Josh Allen is the most talented, not the most successful, because that's a very different discussion. But from a talent perspective, what we're seeing from him right now, it's astonishing, because it's also not like his receivers are wide open. That's one thing that I really notice a difference in with Josh Allen versus some other quarterbacks is he has to deliver some balls that are like wildly accurate and put on the exact spot where, and not to take anything away from Lamar Jackson, because Lamar has been having an insane year,
awesome year,
to a point where I was like, for a while, I'm like, I really want Josh to win MVP, but Lamar, he's just at a different level. Now their statistics are equal. But then I watched the highlights, and again, just the highlights, because I didn't watch that Ravens Giants game. No way I was going to watch that.
Shocker.
Every single one of the balls he threw for a touchdown was like the guy was wide open, or like he threw one into the flat to Justice Hill or somebody, and it was just 20 yards in a straight line, and you didn't see a Giants defender the entire way for a touchdown. So I just think from that level, from the actual visual perspective, I'm watching Josh step back and sling a 60-yard bomb to Keon Coleman and just drop it into the exact spot where yesterday was awesome. It was freaking awesome. And it's really, really cool as a Bills fan to be able to sit here and be like, we might have the most talented quarterback in NFL history. And right now, I think we have the most talented quarterback in the NFL.
The bomb to Coleman, right, where he's just rolling right. First of all, never let Josh Allen get near a sideline, because something happens. There's some sort of weird magic or energy that he gets from being near a sideline, where it's just like, I'm just going to make one of the most ridiculous plays you'll ever see. And so he's near the sideline. He stops, and then he's looking at Keon, who is 30-ish yards down the field already. And then he points and it's like, yeah, no, further.
Go.
Further. And then not only does he throw it further, it is like 52 odd yards to Coleman in stride. And it was like the fastest thrown ball of that distance.
Yeah, I think Ben Albright said that 50 plus yards, fastest it's ever gotten there in the next gen era. Yeah. Wild.
Absurd. Absolutely insane. In fact, it was so fast that the camera was like kind of behind it a little bit. Like it was a wide angle where you could still see it, but like they were still like, oh, it's there. It's there. Okay. Oh, wow. It's just amazing. Oh, what a player. What a player. All right, let's get to some comments. Just the typical news, starting us off hot. I hope I'm not too late for the Gadzooks and Circuit City gift card. Dude, we should get Circuit City to sponsor us, and Radio Shack while we're at it.
It can't cost too much.
Is Radio Shack still around?
I haven't seen a Radio Shack in quite some time at this point in my life.
Is Radio Shack still around? This is still around. They still have a website at least. I don't think there's like any
brick and mortars.
Yeah, there's probably not a lot of them, if any. Yeah, which is probably the right idea for them. Anyway, it's too bad he didn't have a bookie when he first. Just typical new. God, always bringing the heat against me. Roy Collins says, I'm sure I'm not the only one who picked the Lions to win. I think we both picked the Lions to win, if we're being honest. I know you said you did. I'm fairly certain I did. And largely just because I was protecting myself and my own sanity. But man, just a crazy game. James Leclerc says Brady's play calling is to be commended. We will definitely get to Joe Brady. The holding call, very ticky-tack. very accurate. Very, I mean, that's being generous if we're being honest. Like, that was just such a stupid call that took away such a great play. Jared K says, wine time. Brother, it is Victory Monday. It is always time for wine. And I know that you are partaking in some tasty bevs as well.
Yeah.
There you go. Cheers.
Not quite wine.
Not quite
but
wine.
but a nice little beverage for this.
The wine of grains.
Exactly.
There you go. Walter S says Allen is going to go down as the greatest offensive weapon the league has ever seen. Not necessarily the best QB, but best offensive weapon. So, sure, he won't be the best QB. And some people might say I'm crazy for this. I think he's a top 5 quarterback of all time. I think by the end of his career, he'll be a top 5 quarterback of all time. I just, what he's doing, the pace that he's on for his career at this point is almost unfathomable. Like, I don't know. It's impossible to really put into words how he's doing this. And I understand that, like, Patrick Mahomes is who Patrick Mahomes is. And I get that. I'm not trying to take anything away from Patrick Mahomes, but for whatever reason, the Chiefs have decided to lean into this very living on the edge. We're going to run the ball a lot, get ourselves into third and manageable situations, and kind of get you by 1,000 paper cuts, essentially, right? Which is fine. It's obviously working for them because they're 12-1 now, 12-2, whatever, or the 13-1.
13-1, yeah.
So stupid. But, like, if you put Josh Allen on the Chiefs, are they better right now? Like, yes. I think if nothing else, right? Like, I do think that Mahomes is like covering up a lot of really bad issues that the Chiefs had, not the least of which is their god awful tackle play, right? But I think there's also just like the extra element that Allen brings as a runner that Mahomes doesn't, right? Like, Mahomes will run because he knows it will piss off everyone that's watching, right? He knows that everything else is covered, and he's like, doesn't matter. I'll just run. I can do it. I don't want to run. I just do it. And it's annoying, but Allen is like, yeah, I'm gonna run. Right, but I'm gonna run. I'm just gonna run. Don't worry about it. I got it. It's just so different and so crazy. I absolutely love it.
It's one of those things right now where like it's so frustrating because Patrick Mahomes is the most successful quarterback of this era. That's not debatable. He has 3 Super Bowls and 2 MVPs.
Right.
I cannot sit here and debate that Allen is as successful as him because he isn't. Like, I can't say that. But I think it's reasonable to say that Josh Allen is the better quarterback of the two of them right now by actually a fairly large margin when you consider what's happening this season and also what happened last season. Yes, Mahomes got the better of him in the playoffs, but largely that was due to stuff completely out of Josh Allen's control. And really, Mahomes' playoff run wasn't that elite level play from him. He still goes and wins the Super Bowl, so you can't take anything away from him. That being said, like, watching him play this year, yeah, he's still doing some really, really good stuff, but it's not at Allen's level right now. Now, Mahomes, knowing Patrick Mahomes, he'll turn it on here in the playoffs, and we'll all forget about this crazy stupidity. But right now, Allen and really Lamar are playing at such a different level than everybody else. It's got me questioning: are we in the golden era of quarterback play?
Ooh,
which is
that's a hot
really wild thing to think about when we just came out of Peyton and Rodgers and Brady and Breeze and Roethlisberger. Like, that was really good, but is Mahomes and Allen and Lamar and Joe Burrow more golden than those guys were? I think it's close, or it's trending that way.
And I mean, even if, like, you look at this quarterback class that came through this past year, right? Like, unlike the one from a couple years ago that had Lawrence and Fields and Wilson and Trey Lance, like, none of those guys in the first year really looked all that good, other than Mac Jones, ironically enough. But you look at this class right now, I mean, all of these guys, to some extent or another, other than JJ McCarthy and Michael Penix, because of varying circumstances with them, McCarthy getting hurt, Penix being behind Kirk Cousins, but like Drake May and Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels, all three of the first three guys have really shown like kind of high level flashes. Like Jaden Daniels, obviously. Caleb Williams has been in such a weird situation. It's hard, but like he's had his ups and downs. Some of the up stuff has been really, really high level stuff, and the down stuff has been like, this is bad. I just don't know like how much of this is really his fault, because it's clearly so dysfunctional in Chicago, and hopefully they turn that around, but no guarantees. And with Drake May, like he's also in an untenable situation in New England, but man, some of the throws and plays that dude makes are unbelievable for a rookie. I mean, it is crazy. And so if one of those guys, even if it is just like Jaden Daniels with Washington, even if he's the only one that really continues to stride forward and stuff, and I don't think he will be the only one. I don't know who else, but one of these guys, if not multiple guys, are going to really be legitimate quarterbacks, I think. Then you're adding another guy or two into this conversation, and you're kind of in the same sort of realm that you were just talking about with Brady and Manning and Breeze and Rodgers and Roethlisberger. Like, it's incredible how, despite the fact that we're in this era where there's only a select few number of quarterbacks in the NFL that are in this stratosphere, the Buffalo Bills have one of those quarterbacks, and he's far and away the most fun and exciting and just pure football energy of any of those quarterbacks, which is more just like from a pure enjoyment angle, right? And I'm totally okay with that right now. Like Patrick Mahomes is amazing and does plenty of wild, crazy, entertaining stuff on his own. Lamar Jackson is just smooth, cool customer. Like nothing really phases that dude. But man, with Allen, it's like pure backyard football energy, all bundled into an oversized toddler of an NFL player.
Yes, that is the best way to describe him. He's, man, I like have to pinch myself every time I watch him, because like I'll go and watch a lot of other games, and we just went over all these great quarterbacks, and but if I'm watching some of the other games, I don't know, I'm just thinking of like watching the Dolphins, even take on was it the Texans they had yesterday?
Yep.
Yeah, watching that game, I was like, oh, like this isn't fun. Like I'm not having a good time here with Tua going at CJ Stroud, who CJ Stroud coming to the season was a dark horse MVP candidate for some people. And it's like the level of play from these great quarterbacks is so different than the level of play from those second tier to third tier quarterbacks. It's really awesome that the Bills happen to be the one with the dude, because he is the dude.
He is the dude. That's the best way to put it. All right. Before we get too much further, let's do our quick read here, which is all about really you guys, and that is talking about cover one pass. Folks, if you don't know already, and I don't know how you would unless you're new, and if you're new, thank you for joining us for the first time, and drop a like, a comment, leave something in the chat. We'll be sure to take a look at it. But if you're new, this is the thing to go to cover1.net. Sign up for Cover One Pass. It's $60 a year. It is the best money you'll spend on football all year. You get exclusive content. You get in-depth analysis. You get breakdowns that not everyone else is going to get. You get scouting reports. You get analytics. You get access, more importantly, to the Discord community, where you get to see a whole lot of things. You get breaking news before a lot of other people do. You get fantasy advice from Chris Chews directly, which is kind of an important thing right now. If you're considering, let's think about it this way. If you're in a league where you've already spent $100 as a buy-in in a 12-team league, and you're looking at that payout saying, hey, this might be the year for me. If you spend another $60, you just ask Chris Chews every week, odds are you're probably going to win that league and you're going to get a lot of money.
Good point.
So I'm just throwing that out there. I mean, and you and I are both on the record. We are not fans of fantasy football analysts because we think many of them are dumb. Chris Juice is not. That dude puts more work into this than I'm guessing a lot of other people in his spot. And that's just fantasy football. We have plenty of people who talk about analytics, who do the film breakdowns, who talk about salary cap, who talk about roster management. It's all here in Cover One. And you get to talk about other things like music and TV and food and plenty of other, really anything you want. It's a great community of people. It's $60 a year. It's the best money you'll spend on football. You'll also get a free t-shirt courtesy of 26 shirts. You'll also get a decal and a letter from Greg, Aaron, and Eric. Greg, Aaron, and Eric. That's all the 3 names. Thanking you for your support, and it's totally worth it. I can't recommend it enough. Like I said, best $60 a year you'll spend on football. Sign up today. Start winning today. All right. More comments. We've had a lot of comments. Jeez. Let's see. Walter S. says, Allen at worst at this rate is the next Dan Marino. He's already through 10 postseason games in the top 20 in postseason touchdowns and passes Marino with 6 touchdowns, which seems unlikely this postseason at least. Oh, and passes Marino with 6 touchdowns, which seems unlikely or seems like it. I can read. I could totally read. I'm not. Also, I'm not drunk. I'm God. Seems likely this postseason at least. Yeah, I agree. Areola Grande says, guys, I'm concerned about Milano. He's giving off Trey White, Von Miller post-injury vibes. We might talk about Matt Milano. We'll talk about Matt Milano a little bit. Steve Noble says, Josh looks happy this year. Someone made a comment on a pod, less Steph, less stress. He has been playing absolutely lights out since getting engaged. Hey, who knew getting engaged to an actress and song or singer like Haley Steinfeld would be like really good for your confidence and stuff. Someone should try that out. I mean, if someone wants to hook me up with someone, I mean, that would be great. Just let me know. I mean, I can send a list. I'm not that drunk where I'm gonna list that right now, but yeah, the DMs are open, people. Just saying.
You get engaged to an Avenger, you become an Avenger, apparently. So,
ooh, that's a good point. That's a very good point. We're gonna have to do something with that. Unknown says, I heard this new narrative today that Josh being the MVP favorite is proof he's the most overrated quarterback. Man, people just want to hate, man. I don't know what else I can say. It's just wild how far people are willing to go to not give this man his props. It's crazy, man. I don't get it. Just the tip of canoe says, I realize Ben Johnson sounds like the home run hire for Caleb Williams, but didn't Mike Vrabel sound like the safe pick for this team? Call me crazy, but sometimes safe isn't always a bad thing. I don't disagree. I like Mike Vrabel a lot. When we talk about coaches who struggle with like end of game situations or clock management or like specific like critical situations or odd situations, right? Mike Vrabel almost always seemed ready and prepared in those moments in a way that like almost no other NFL coach is. And I don't know exactly what went down with them in Tennessee, like what the issues were, but this dude really deserves to be a head coach in 2025. I would be a little surprised if he wasn't. And yeah, that's all I gotta say about Mike Vrabel. I like the dude, and I don't want to, but I do. Ariel Grande also says Campbell going for an onside kick with 12 minutes left is basically proof that Allen is the MVP. So I'm gonna throw something out here. I saw this on Twitter. I forget who said it, but basically that doing that in that situation was basically like walking Barry Bonds with the bases loaded.
I saw that tweet. Yeah.
It's just,
yeah, that's what it was.
You have no other options at that point. That's what that felt like.
Yeah, he's going to go score. So we can't give him the ball. We need to keep the ball from him. There's only one way we can do that, and that's onside kick and hope that that 3% success rate works. And to be fair, I mean, it didn't work on that one. Matt Collins almost pulled him like a hide. On the second one, it almost
it did almost work. Yeah. And credit to the Lions for not trying to do the same kick twice.
Yeah.
Right. Like, this is always what I love about the Lions, is that they always have the next step ready, right? They have the next thing ready. It's not, okay, well, this is how we practice it. This is how we do the onside kick. This is what we think is going to work. They're like, okay, we're going to try this. If it gets there, we think we can get it. Okay, we didn't get that one. All right. How do we feel about straight up the middle, hit the up man right at the gun, and we'll see if we can't get it in the scrum or whatever. And it almost worked. And Jake Bates, the kicker, deserves a lot of credit for getting himself right in the middle of a very contentious pile. But ultimately, like, this reminds me, because Taron Johnson was the one who recovered this. Taron Johnson, like, you want to talk about a clutch player on this team, especially defensively. That is a clutch player for this team. Another phenomenal all-pro caliber season from Taron Johnson. And I know he was the second team all-pro last year. I don't know who is in consideration for first team all-pro for the nickel corner this year, but he should be in that conversation again. He really should.
He's got to be. 100% has to be.
Yep. Ralph Wilson Sr. from the grave says the NFL changing the Pats game from 1 to 425 is proving Josh's must-see TV. True, and it's also very irritating to me. I was so looking forward to ending the season with 3 straight 1 p.m. games and just relaxing and not worrying about, when I have to time certain things throughout my day. No, it's just like, 4:30 game. It's like, why are we doing this? Can we not do this? Honestly, I'd rather flex the Jets game than this Pats game. At least. I don't want to do this, man. I'm so irritated by this. I know no one cares that much. I mean, Spin clearly does, because this is in all caps. No, I want 1 p.m. games, but like, this is.
I mean, I almost feel like with the darkness coming over Orchard Park and the fan base a little bit more liquored up than they normally would be at a 1 p.m. game, Drake May going into that environment, that's going to be scary for him. So maybe there's a benefit here. Not that we need a benefit. We shouldn't need one to beat this Patriots team. That being said, I'll take any upside I can get just to make sure the Buffalo Bills somehow finish the season 14-3.
Yeah, we'll talk briefly about the Patriots at the end, but I have a potentially hot take about the Patriots.
Okay.
They're in a we'll get to that. Just Canoe says, I'm waiting for the Cover One Only fast page. Now, here's the thing. I might, by the end of this podcast, I might be drunk enough to bring that up in the group chat. So we'll see what Greg, Eric, and Aaron think about that. I'm not saying yes for sure. I would be interested in doing this. I'm definitely not saying no either.
Not to give people a look behind the curtains too much, but I think this has been discussed by Cover One at times during the offseason.
We've discussed something similar to this, kind of in jest. I'm all for this being a very serious conversation at this point. So, and that's very selfish on my part, for the record, but I also don't care. Jared K also mad about the time flex. Okay, I'm glad this isn't just me. All right, I know that I have my own reasons for 1 p.m. games being what I want, but I know, and champagne problems, right? Oh, my team is so good, they have their 1 p.m. games flexed, but it's annoying at this point. And I know in the drought, we were all sitting there like, oh, it would be so nice to see them on Sunday Night Football, or, not have to be forced on Monday Night Football against the Patriots where we know we're going to lose or some crap like that. But I miss my 1 p.m. games, man. They were so nice. They're so nice. I really love 1 p.m. games. It's just, it feels like football to me.
I'm with you.
let's see. What else? Rams game might have hurt Johnson's chances of getting all pro, says Spin 0481. I don't know about that. I think people kind of just look at that game as like, yeah, the whole defense sucked. Like, I don't know about that. Ariola Grande says, is minus 14 the biggest line all year? It's got to be close. I think the Bills are 14-point favorites. Is that what this is
correct
referring to? Okay. Ralph Wilson Sr. says, I think the Giants were plus 16 versus the Eagles. Last week they didn't play the Eagles. Was that last week? Oh, I don't even know anymore. Probably not. At some point last year, I'm sure they were, but
it does say December 11th, 2024. There's an article from this is the New York Post that they dropped to 16.5-point underdogs, which was the biggest dog of the year.
Okay, that makes sense. I feel like, what was it? Sometime during the Manning Broncos era, like before Peyton's arm fell off, when they played the Jaguars, that was like a 20-point spread or something like that. It was at that point that was the largest spread in NFL history. I'll let you look that up. I'm Not Me from Twitter's asks thoughts on Elam's play this past week. He seemed to play pretty well. I mean, like, all things considered, against a really tough Lions team, right? I thought he did pretty well, and I'm sure we'll get into that a bit more. But yeah, I felt that all things considered, right, and against a very difficult unit in the Lions and a really tough play caller in Ben Johnson, I thought he did adequately, which is all you need to do, in my opinion. What do you got?
Biggest underdog ever. Broncos Jaguars 2013. The Jags were 28-point underdogs.
28 points?
And they easily covered.
Yes, I remember that. I remember they easily covered in that. But 28 points, so many
you can't
points.
bet 28 points.
In an NFL game, that is absurd. I know that Jags team was terrible and that Broncos team was like on a roll with that was like their record-setting offensive season. I'm 100% certain. But
the biggest one of recent was Chiefs Jets in 2020. It was a 20.5-point. And I don't actually know if they covered that. I'm going to bet they did cover this. Jets.
I think so.
They won by 26. So, yes, they covered that.
There you go. Let's see. Anything else? What is this? Cycle Jockey says, 1 seed is critical. I still feel like going to KC in the playoffs isn't likely to end well for the Bills. Listen, that assumes that the Chiefs make it to the AFC Championship game. And maybe they don't. Maybe they do. Probably do. But I don't think it's a guarantee at this point. Not with how they've been playing this year. All right. That's enough of that. Not that I don't love all of you people commenting. I actually do enjoy this quite a bit. But we do have plenty of things we want to talk about. And we're going to use that particular comment from Cycle Jockey to segue into this. So the Chiefs, first of all, they got 6 turnovers against the Browns and they won by like 14. Like, really? Anyway, part of the reason why that might be the case is because Patrick Mahomes had a pretty rough looking ankle injury and was pretty gimpy leaving the field. They bring in Carson Wentz to finish the game. Their next few games are against, remind me.
They got a rough stretch.
It's a tough couple of games. I know the Steelers and the Broncos are in there for sure.
And the Texans. So the next one is home versus Texans this Saturday. Then on Christmas Day, they play at Pittsburgh. And then in week 18 at Denver.
That's a rough go of things because that Denver defense is very, very hard. And they were that close to beating them the last time in Kansas City. Steelers, I mean, my gosh, you can never really count out the Steelers, and especially if George Pickens is healthy, which I think we would assume at that point he would be. And you've got the Texans who, we don't feel all that strongly about the Texans, but we don't think they're a bad team either.
Correct.
And at home, when your quarterback is not going to be, I mean, whether or not Mahomes plays is one thing. He's not going to be 100% if he does play, though. Like, he is not going to be at 100%. So then you're really in a difficult spot if you're Kansas City, because if you lose that game, you look at the Bills' schedule down the stretch being Patriots, Jets, Patriots, all of which are very winnable, easy, relatively speaking, games. You kind of feel like maybe you're under a bit of pressure to stay ahead of Buffalo in these situations. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be a weird. I've been looking and thinking about this all day. It's going to be a really weird end to the season because what does Kansas City feel they need to like? This Saturday's game against the Texans is going to be the telling moment of the strategy, regardless of if Mahomes plays or not. If the Chiefs win that, I feel like they could relatively easily, I say easily, they still have the Steelers and the Broncos, but they could essentially assume, hey, we're going to lock up the one. Like we can be a little bit more cautious with Mahomes and some other players on our team. We just have to sneak out a win against the Broncos in Week 18. If they lose to the Texans, though, then pressure is going to ramp right up because now the Bills are nipping at their heels, assuming the Bills do what they're supposed to against the Patriots, the Jets, and the Patriots.
And that's the assumption, right? Because there's something that could happen. Division games get weird. I get all that, but
the weirdest part to me is Week 18. You have a decision to make, both the Bills and the Chiefs in that moment, is do we want the 1 seed? If we want the 1 seed, we got to go all out today and hope the other team loses or hope the other team, something happens with them is a possibility. You lose a guaranteed bye because if both of them, assuming everything goes the way it should, Week 18 at a minimum will be a guaranteed bye for them because they don't need to. They'll be the 1 or the 2 seed at that point. You put them in a kind of a pickle here where it's deciding, does the 1 seed matter? Does the 2 seed matter? Do I want the guaranteed bye or not? Because if you're the Chiefs, let's say, and you go all out, you're like, we got to beat the Broncos. And then the Bills handle their business, but you don't handle yours. Your opportunity to bye is now gone. And you have to play in round 1 against probably the Broncos again, which is kind of a wild thing. It's going to be very interesting. And Saturday's game, like I said, it's going to tell a lot. If they lose to the Texans, things are going to start getting wacky and wild here for the Bills and the Chiefs.
Spin0481 says, I think they sit Mahomes versus Houston. If they lose, they play Mahomes versus the Steelers. If they beat the Texans, then they sit him versus the Steelers. This is interesting. And Steve Noble brings up a great point. I don't think Mahomes plays this weekend. Texans are number 2 in the league in sacks. So Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter against those tackles.
Bad.
And I didn't watch much, if any, of that Chiefs-Browns game. So correct me if I'm wrong. And actually, I could probably look this up. Maybe. Was Joe Thuney playing left tackle for them during that game? Like the entire time?
I didn't even see this part of it, but I kept seeing all day today the Chiefs are having a guard play left tackle. So I don't know if it was Thuney that's doing it.
I'm like 99. I think if they did have a guard playing tackle, I'm like 100% sure it's Joe Thuney, because they did that in the Raiders game in like that last drive that they had, because Wanya Morris was just getting his ass beat. But let's see.
Dude, that's so then you mess with your.
So here are the snap counts. Creed Humphrey at center, 70 or 100% of the snaps. Jawan Taylor at tackle, 100% of the snaps. Mike Caliendo, who is listed at guard, 100% of the snaps. Trey Smith, also listed at guard, 100% of the snaps. And Joe Thuney, 100% of the snaps, also listed at guard, because he is on the roster as a guard. So I think they kicked Thuney out to left tackle and made Caliendo come into that left guard role, which, I mean, this is such a bad situation for the Chiefs, and it matters not a lot, but also, like, how much of this ankle injury is because of the fact that Mahomes is trying to work around these tackles not being that good. So it is a problem. And
I can confirm Thuney. I just went to Pro Football Focus. Thuney played 75 snaps at left tackle.
Yeah, that was it. I mean, it's such a brutal situation. It really is. Ariel Grande says sending Wentz out to be the sacrificial lamb is kind of funny. Yeah, it's just the Texans are, despite how we kind of feel about them, which is like, they're not a great team. They're not going to be a Super Bowl contending team in all likelihood unless they just find some other crazy fifth, sixth gear that they haven't shown any of in this regular season. But they're still a tough team, and especially defensively, right? Like D'Amico Ryans can coach up that defense so well, especially in big moments. Like they find ways to really do pretty great things like in big games defensively. And Derek Stingley is amazing. He closed out that game yesterday against the Dolphins. Danielle Hunter still has it as a pass rusher, and obviously Will Anderson being opposite of him is fantastic for them. But it's a tough situation for both of these teams, and the Texans definitely look more stabilized offensively with Nico Collins. That's for sure, and that makes sense. Obviously, Nico Collins is a phenomenal receiver, but they're still not like incredible. They are who they are. They, not to take anything from Dennis Green talking about the Bears, but like the Texans are who we thought they were.
Yeah. I mean, yesterday they had 181 yards of offense against the Dolphins. So that's simply not good enough. Yet it was good enough because they won 20-12, due in large part to Tua's, I think 4 turnover day or maybe 3 turnover day. I don't remember exactly. But yeah, that defense is scary. So look, Mahomes plays, they're going to be all over him. I don't know. I don't know what the Chiefs' plan is here. They need 2 wins to lock up the 1 seed, or they need the Bills to hiccup here against 2 teams they should not hiccup against. The 1 seed's very much alive, and if Buffalo can find a way to steal that from Kansas City and basically assure themselves, every playoff game in Buffalo and a fairly easy path, like if. Especially if Baltimore can steal that spot from the Steelers, like if Baltimore wins this weekend and they move into the 3 seed, I think things start to get very, very interesting, because then you're talking about Buffalo playing, who knows, the Texans or the Broncos in round 2 of the playoffs. So, round 2 of the playoffs. It'll be interesting. Still a lot of intrigue left in this season.
100%. Let's talk about the Bills' offense. Because we're gonna talk about Josh Allen. Obviously, we're gonna start with Josh Allen. And I know I had my very heated and passionate rant about Josh Allen's MVP status last week, and this will not be nearly as long. First of all, so you're welcome, and it won't be quite as passionate because the play just speaks for itself, man. What he's doing is just absolutely unbelievable. I mean, we talked about at the top of the show that he's on this ridiculous pace for his career and all this sort of stuff. And we joke about it, but it's because it's true. Every week we are seeing him do something that is historic. I mean, he is setting records and doing historically great things every single week at this point. In fact, it's so incredible that the Ravens are trying really hard to make Lamar Jackson seem like he's also doing the same things. And again, this is not to besmirch Lamar Jackson because he is doing great things this season. But they put out a graphic that was like, 1 of 1, first player in NFL history to have complete 80% of his passes, have 5 passing touchdowns and 60 yards rushing with no turnovers. And then you were ahead of this pretty much before anyone else. Obviously, you pretty much always are with this sort of stuff. But then it got community noted with Josh Allen did this in the playoffs in 2021, where he did that against the Patriots, not against the 2-win Giants, who are so down bad that someone is paying someone to fly a plane, calling for everyone to be fired during a game. this was a Patriots team that had a really good defense, and he did to them in the playoffs. It's just, and that was years ago. And for him to do what he's been doing since then, from then, and doing this year in particular, I mean, it's just wild. To be more specific, okay, 23 of 34 for 362 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 11 rushing attempts for 68 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. They really leaned into the Josh Allen run game in yesterday's game, which I was a big fan of. I'm a big fan of that. Leads the NFL in touchdowns with 37, which is tied with Burrow and Lamar. It's also crazy that Burrow has that many touchdowns because he doesn't have the rushing ability that Lamar and Josh Allen have.
True.
So he's basically just doing that almost exclusively through the pass. And there's something to be said about that as well. But we're not here to talk about Joe Burrow, and we're not here to talk about Lamar Jackson. We're here to talk about the 2024 NFL MVP, and it's Josh Allen.
I mean, I'm still holding my breath on it. I will not say that he is guaranteed. Like Dan Orlovsky is like, it's over. And you got a couple other people saying it's over. Honestly, it probably should be over at this point. But I've also seen a couple people like, I can't even remember his name, who I believe I have one. There was one voter from last year who's saying right now that he'd vote Lamar for MVP, which if that's the case, then it won't be unanimous because somebody's going to assure that Josh is not the unanimous MVP, but it's getting damn close to it. I will say if the Ravens lose to the Steelers, which I think is this weekend, if they lose to the Steelers, then it will be a unanimous MVP for Josh Allen. It doesn't matter what happens the rest of the season, but that all but assures the Ravens are a wild card and the Bills would be the 2 seed most likely. That being said, MVP aside, Josh Allen's been absolutely phenomenal. He leads the NFL in EPA per play. He leads all ball carriers, that includes running backs, in total EPA on on rushing, essentially. He's insane, and he does it in every which way. The one thing that you brought up is they're leaning into his legs more. They leaned into his legs a lot against Detroit. They also did the same thing against the Rams. I think that Josh's hand is finally healthy. And then I do wonder why he still wears the glove. He did mention it once and say he feels comfortable with it on. I don't know what that necessarily means, but so be it.
Well, yeah, I always go back. There was a time when JJ Watt had some sort of elbow or triceps or some sort of injury to his arm. And so when he came back the following season, or maybe it was during the season, he wore that arm brace. And he just wore it for the rest of his career. Once you get something like that on, it's hard to take it off again during a game. It's just sort of like, hey, if I'm used to it and it doesn't really affect me, I'm just gonna keep wearing it. Plus, you know, and professional sports players are very superstitious. That's
true. True. That being said, I do think that hand is healthy. And I think that's important, surprisingly, for the ground game, because I think Josh is comfortable with the ball in both hands or his ability to secure the ball more. So he's more apt to run the ball. He also is more apt to run the ball in games that Buffalo needs or in moments they need. And I do think this Lions game, to some extent, the Bills felt like we need this game. We need this game, maybe not to necessarily go for the 1 seed, but to lock up the 2 seed. Yeah, we need this one. And damn, Josh, he went out and made sure that they were going to get this one. Like James Cook had a great game. We'll talk about him. Ty Johnson had a great game. We'll talk about him. But Josh really had another one of those games where he put the team on his back and says, they can score how many points they want. Like, we're going to score more than they do. And I'll make sure of that. Just incredibly impressive.
It's another game of Josh Allen being the MVP. Mm-hmm. And it might be stupid in some ways to reduce it down to that, but that's what it is. That's what it comes down to. There's no one else who is doing what he's doing in the way that he's doing it, at the pace that he's doing it, and with the team. Lamar would still be doing great things if he was on the Bills, and Josh Allen would be doing great things if he was on the Ravens. But I don't think that Lamar would be producing at the same level if he was on the Bills right now. he would still be playing very, very well. Probably be kind of similar to like last year, what he was doing, right? Just sort of like steady, even throughout basically every game, where he's not getting super high or super low in terms of stats or overall play. And that's not a bad thing, right? Like that stabilizing element is very critical. But like what Allen is doing is, what's his worst game this year?
Well, it's the Ravens or the
game?
Texans game. Yeah.
The Texans, like the Texas game was more just offensive malfunction throughout that entire first half. And the Ravens game, I mean, they just got behind, they got out of sorts, they got out of sync, and then Joe Brady decided to hit everyone with the dumbest trick play imaginable. But they bounced back from that. They got through all of that. And since then, they have just been on an unbelievable tear offensively. It's just amazing. And actually, go ahead.
I actually think so that the Ravens and Texans game were bad, and Josh had one total touchdown in those two games. I actually think that benefits his case for saying, hey, I'm the best in the NFL, because it was two bad games that for most part has been proven to be a fluke on the season. And outside of those, in the other, what are they right now? They're to 11-3. So in the other, the numbers in the other 12 games, Allen's counted for 36 touchdowns. He's averaging 3 touchdowns a game. Like those two games should have put him in a spot where, like, statistically he cannot catch up. There's no path to catch up. You only scored 1 touchdown in 2 games, and you were statistically pretty porous in each of them. Your completion percentage was low. Your yardage was low. You had a turnover against the Ravens, and yet Josh is on par with Lamar Jackson statistically, and one of the statistically greatest seasons we've ever seen from two quarterbacks. It makes it more astounding that Allen lost those 2 games to just disastrous issues and still somehow is where he is right now. He's been, especially the last 4 games, he's been the best player in football. Undoubtedly the best. The last 4 games, the best player in football by a mile. He's been insane.
100%. Sarah Christine brings up a great point. How can Lamar be MVP when he's not winning his division and isn't really like projected to win his division? They literally just make this be up as they go. It's always whatever helps them and not endorse Josh. And this has been my biggest like not pet peeve. This has just been my biggest beef with this MVP discussion this year, because all anyone could talk about last year when making Lamar MVP was, it's not all about stats. It's not all about this. They're the best team in the NFL. They're 14-2, all that sort of stuff. And it wasn't wrong, but it was also going against precedent by making someone like that MVP with not having those sorts of stats, right? But they did, and he was. Now you're at this season, and all of these same people are like, well, like Josh Allen, like, yeah, they're a good team, but the stats aren't what they were, which at this point is going to become a useless argument, because by the end of the season, the stats will be pretty much what they've been the last 4 seasons with Josh Allen. And plus also, they locked up their division on December 1st before anyone else was even close, if we're being honest, other than Kansas City, who they beat, and along with Detroit, the 2 number 1 seeds in the NFL right now. What else are we supposed to do here? What else is supposed to happen here? Do you want him to like descend from Mount Olympus with a bolt of lightning in his fist and declare himself the god of thunder? Like, what are we doing here?
I mean, the biggest look, before the season started, there was countless people, Sam Acho being one of them, for instance, who said that and Sam Acho has an MVP vote, which that's an insane thing to me. He said before the season, and there's definitely a clip out there that I should go find, if Josh Allen can will this team to a division title, he's the MVP. There's no question. If he can just get them to a division title, because this team's terrible. Now it's over then. If the conversation's done, because if that was your preseason perception, you said this team's terrible, and now you're looking at them as possibly the best team in the NFL, he's the MVP. You set the ground rules, and he's disproved you. now you have to vote for him for MVP. My only thing is they keep moving the goalposts over and over again. Like you said, last year it was, well, he only has 29 touchdowns and he had 13 turnovers. They keep pushing this nonsense that he only had 7 because of the interceptions. He had 13. Because at the same time they say he had 7, they're like, well, Josh had 22. It's like, what? He had 18 interceptions and 4 fumbles. Yeah. So you can't use total for Josh and not total for Lamar, which they do over and over again. That being said, like you had your opportunity to not do something absolutely stupid last year and give Lamar Jackson that MVP award. Now that's the rules you set. You don't get to change them this season. My fear is they're going to change them. That they just, I would not be shocked if they do. That being said, Josh has basically had every MVP moment you can possibly have at this point. If they don't give it to him, you'll have everybody in the NFL calling it a Mickey Mouse award and no one will give a damn about it anymore.
And they should.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on. We've spent so much time talking about Josh Allen and other things and not enough talking about this game. And one of the things I want to talk about with this game was, and I've talked about this before, and I love talking about this because it was not always the case when Josh Allen was the quarterback. This running back room is so good.
Yes.
Like, I love all 3 of these guys for different reasons, right? James Cook turning into what he is astounding to me because I was not a big James Cook guy when he came out of Georgia. I thought like, he's okay, I guess. But when they took him in the second round, I was like, that's a reach and a half. Like I did not like that pick. But he's turned into a phenomenal player. In fact, like the play that he had after halftime, the long touchdown run, was a play that had Josh Allen not done what he does, would have been leading most highlight reels for like end of game, Sunday night, Monday Night Football, countdown, that sort of thing. Like, that was an amazing run. I mean, when you get pulled by your hair, and all it does is just slow you down, and you're just like, that's annoying. I'm going to score a touchdown now. I mean, that's just crazy. And what's even better is James Cook has how many rushing touchdowns this year?
13.
He has 13 rushing touchdowns this year. He had 4 in the previous 2 years combined. That's ridiculous. And he had a good number. I mean, he had 1,100 yards last year. He was, he had 4.7 average, but only 2 rushing touchdowns. It was sort of like, it is what it is. He has 13 rushing touchdowns. It's crazy. And it feels like he's sort of being forgotten about because of Josh Allen's just incredible season. But James Cook is a really good running back, man. It is amazing. And not only that, Ty Johnson led this team in receiving yesterday. The 3rd running back for this team led this team in receiving. And actually, I don't know if you can look this up. I'm sure you can. If I tried to do it, it would take me forever. How many different players have led this team in receiving this season?
I'll get you that. I'll get you.
So, Ty Johnson for sure. I'm pretty confident in saying Khalil Shakir has, if at multiple points during the season, has done that. I'm pretty sure in the Tennessee game, Keon Coleman did. And then, is that it?
4, 5, 6 players.
6 different players have led this team in receiving.
Yeah, so you named Coleman, Shakir.
Yep. Ty
Johnson. Okay. You got Ray Davis.
Oh, was that the Miami game?
That was the Jets game.
Right. Yeah,
you got Mac Hollins.
I thought he had Colts. One. Yeah.
And Dawson Knox against the 49ers.
It's
hilarious, dude.
Not Dalton Kincaid, not Amari Cooper. No. That's just crazy, dude. I don't know what to do with that. and then you have Ray Davis, right? Who doesn't get like a ton of run, but when he does, he's super physical. He fights for every yard and caught a touchdown yesterday after that Mac Hollins onside kick recovery return. This running back room is so good. I mean, and they all fit different roles. They're all so complementary of each other. Like Ray Davis's style is so aggressive and so hard-nosed, but James Cook's speed and even his physicality has gotten better over the years. Like he can roll through some defenders at times. And it's very impressive. And Ty Johnson, what he does in the pass game is so good because he's not just good at catching passes effectively, especially downfield. My gosh, he had 3 catches of 20 or more yards. That is crazy. And it was in like the first quarter. I mean, this wasn't like, oh, he's just like the only one open and like making, breaking a tackle or something. Like, no, this was like schemed up stuff. Like, this is crazy. And he's also a really good pass protector. And when they do give him the ball, it's not the most impressive runs, but there are times where he's a pretty effective runner between the tackles in particular. They've never had a running back room like this, not even close to anything like this. And it's clear how helpful it is to have a whole stable of running backs that can work together, that are selfless enough to not care about who's getting the majority of carries, who's getting this situation, who's in on this play, whatever. No, they all know their roles. They all stay in their lane and they do exactly what they need to do. And it's awesome.
Yeah. I think I always go back to what Max Toscano told us when we were doing the draft show on day 3, and Ray Davis got drafted and he had some insight. And one of the things he kept bringing up to us was like, he's a good pass catcher. He's a really good pass catcher, so he'll fit that offense really well. And then you look at James Cook, who coming out of college was supposed to be a big pass catcher. He had some issues with drops last year. I don't really remember many of them this year. He had one, I think I can recall. Yeah. So to some extent, clean that up. And then Ty Johnson, also a good pass catcher. And why that works for the Bills is they can put any of the 3 in. And what the opposing defense needs to do is they need to adhere to James Cook's speed and agility. They need to be aware of Ray Davis's thumping ability. And they also need to fear Ty Johnson's ability as a blocker, as the extra blocker to protect Josh Allen. While doing all of that and while being aware of all of that, they can spill out and catch a pass. So what it does is you have no tell. You don't know what they're going to do, regardless of which player is on the field. And that's essentially what Joe Brady did yesterday. He said, we're going to put Ty Johnson in the backfield. We know that Detroit thinks he's going to block. Well, he's not going to block. He's going to run that little wheel route out to the outside, and Josh's going to hit him over the top. And he just did it over and over and over again. The fact that Ty Johnson had 100 that was on no one's bingo card this year. Not a single. There's no one that had a bet in the entire NFL. Like, if you could have bet who will have 100 receiving yards, that would have been plus 50,000. Hell, no one's going to bet that because there's no way in hell it's going to happen. He caught 100 yards passing from Josh. And honestly, not to go back on Josh too much, this is another reason he's the MVP of the league. There's not many RB3s in the NFL catching a ball for 100 yards. The Bills used all their running backs perfectly yesterday. This is what I think makes them so scary come postseason is you still have Superman back there. Josh Allen is Superman. But you also have to contend with this 3-headed monster, which they don't have a player like Saquon Barkley or Derrick Henry per se, but they got 3 really, really good players that regardless of game flow, they could be down or they could be up. You're going to have problems with them. It's really exciting running back room for Buffalo to have.
It absolutely is. Another reason why this running back room is so good is because his offensive line is good. And they've been, I think, so last year, it was a big deal that this offensive line, one, improved in the way that they did, but also they were healthy the entire season. And I think coming into this year, we were like, okay, the odds of that happening again are very, very low, right? Because that's just not something that happens all that often. And injuries happen in the NFL. It's a physical game. And Spencer Brown missed a couple of games, right? Am I remembering that correctly?
I think he did miss a game, maybe
missed
2.
A game.
Yeah.
Was it the Ravens game that he missed?
Oh gosh, that didn't pull up correctly. I will get you the name of the game he missed. He definitely missed one. He missed the Kansas City game.
Oh, he missed the Kansas City game. That's right. Shoot, that's crazy.
So maniacal laugh there. I love it. That was perfectly timed.
I didn't think of that. I just didn't think of that. Man, that's crazy. So, is that the only offensive lineman that's missed a game for the Bills this year?
I'm fairly certain of that. Yes,
I'm pretty sure Dawkins has it. I'm pretty sure McGovern and Edwards haven't. Very certain Osiris Torrance hasn't. So, once again, this offensive line has stayed very, very healthy. And that's a blessing for this team because it's a great unit when they're all healthy and working together. And they've just been so dominant. And it's so great seeing Deion Dawkins in particular as he's gotten older, just how much better he's gotten. Yeah. Like there was a point probably around 2021 that I would be like, this is, he is what he is. Like this is probably the peak of Deion Dawkins' abilities, which is like a pretty good left tackle, but not like elite level left tackle. And now we're in 2024 and it's like, this dude is probably going to be an all-pro at this point this year.
Yeah.
Like it would be like maybe not first team, but probably second team, I would think. He's just been, his technique has gotten so much better. He's just so consistent. He brings so much power and physicality. It's really cool to see Deion Dawkins in this mode.
His highlight reel is better than a lot of skill players' highlight reel. He's been so freaking good this year, and I brought this guy's name up a lot. Like I really like following Brandon Thorne on Twitter for his offensive line analysis, and he just gushes over Deion Dawkins and how amazing he is and how technically sound he is. And like you said, as he's gotten older, he's only gotten better, which is because he's got technically better. And he's all these little tricks of the trade he's learning. And a lot of offensive linemen I've heard get interviewed when they first come into the league. They say the one thing that you learn really quick is that you have to cheat and you have to be really, really good at cheating and figuring out ways to cheat. And I don't know if Dawkins is necessarily cheating, but he's finding ways to beat these defenders in that snatch trap that he has, where he waits till you're leaning on him, and then he just smashes. He doesn't care who it is either. He'll do it to anybody. It's phenomenal. I'll also say too, Spencer Brown. I've been thinking about him a lot. He's only gotten better too, which is really really cool because now the Bills are bookended at left and right tackle for the foreseeable future. Spencer Brown, and I tweeted this out yesterday, I think he's the perfect right tackle for Josh Allen. I say that because he's so athletic. So when Josh spills to the right, whether or not Spencer Brown maybe messed up his assignment, or maybe he didn't because Josh just likes going to the right for whatever reason. He's basically Zoolander at this point. Spencer Brown will get out to that side of the field with him and can buy him like a second more, where there's some right tackles that might be stuck in the mud a little bit, don't have the speed, don't have the strength to get out there and help him a little bit extra. I think Spencer Brown's perfect in that role, and his ability as a pulling tackle as well as Dawkins' ability as this offensive line has gotten better and better and better. And Josh Allen being behind them, I tweeted this out today too. He's been sacked 2 times in the past 5 games for a total of 0 yards. Yeah. He's essentially hasn't been sacked in 5 games. That doesn't work. That's not a thing in the modern NFL. That doesn't happen. It's one of those things where the Bills' running games are working really well. It didn't work well against the Rams, but it worked well this week. Josh is obviously playing at an elite level, and the offensive line just is good. It's just good to really good, which is a great thing to have in January football, which the Bills will be hopefully playing a lot of.
I'm gonna jump the gun because some people are talking about it. Chill Will says, lost in all this, Bass missed a chip shot. He did miss a chip shot. He missed a chip shot after they got backed up on a bogus false start / missed offsides penalty. Adrian Hill strikes again. And that was so annoying. I was so mad at that.
Yeah.
And then Jake Bates, who's been money for Detroit all year, missed like that. That was a bad shank, and that was from a lot longer, obviously. But it was like his first miss at that distance as well, and it was by a lot too, which it was crazy. So it was like, okay, they equal out. That's annoying. RJ says that bass miss was something you would get cut in high school for. Yeah, if you also can't make any kicks, sure. Like, who is it? Steve Noble. Steve Noble. Bass absolutely cannot kick from the right hash. So that short kick, which was 24 yards, right?
24, yeah.
24 yards. Okay. That was from the right hash, right?
I honestly don't.
I'm like 99% sure that was from the right hash. So then he later on in the fourth quarter, he makes a 50-yard field goal. Like right where it needed to be. Care to guess where that one was set?
Well, I think I'm going to follow your lead here. I'm going to get. Was it the right hash?
It was the right hash,
Oh.
Uber. It was the right hash. What a crazy thing.
Interesting.
Look,
interesting.
I listen, I'm not trying to sit here and be like, oh, everything is always going to be fine with Tyler Bass. It's annoying that he missed a chip shot 24-yarder in a dome. Right. In a dome. That was probably the most annoying part of it. But he still managed to take that and recover it. And on a side note, Detroit's special teams unit has been awesome all year.
Oh, yeah.
And I think, and the Bills did play pretty well on special teams outside of that one missed kick, right? Getting both onside kicks was huge. Sam Martin, in the few times that he punted, one of them was down inside the 10. He's been pretty good all year. Coverage was good. And I think this is probably where the injuries for Detroit are catching up to them most, because when you're now having to put like second or third team guys in on defense and then bringing up someone else to play special teams, it's not the same. It just isn't. And they're not like falling apart as a special teams unit. That's certainly not the case, obviously. But it's not the same. They're not getting the same sort of advantage from that unit that they probably were early on. And this is sort of the underlying effect of these sorts of injuries, and having as many injuries as they've had, is it just sort of snowballs in this sort of hidden way that doesn't get talked about. And special teams in particular, I mean, that can affect field position more than anything else, right? Just where you're starting on the field, where you're able to start your drive, and how many plays you have to run in order to score a touchdown. It affects things. And the Lions ran a lot of plays yesterday, and it took a while, for the most part, for them to get into the end zone most of the time. So it matters. It does matter. And I understand that the missed kick sucks, and I don't like it, and I'm annoyed by it. And I feel like those sort of chip shot field goals make me more nervous now than the 50-yard field goals with Bass. But am I like using that as a referendum on Bass right now? No, not really. I think unless this continues down the stretch for these last couple of games, I'm not gonna like overreact to the missed chip shot field goal right now.
Yeah, I mean, it was ugly. It was frustrating. But like you said, he did nail that 50-yarder, and I think he made 6 other kicks yesterday. Which, you know,
and the extra points, like we kind of take that for granted, but like that's sort of the other part where I was with Bass, where he's been a little iffy, and making all those extra points, there was no issue with that.
Yeah, and I'll throw one more thing out there. This might be a glass half full thing. You can't necessarily trust Tyler Bass at this point, but there's certain moments where it makes sense. Like, you got to kick a field goal here and there. I do think that Sean McDermott and Joe Brady are going to consider these like semi case of the yips going to the playoffs, and it might make them more aggressive for an already aggressive team, which might be a good thing. It might be 4th and 3, and the Bills usually would kick in that situation. They might be like, Josh, can you get 3 yards? Yeah, I'm a unicorn. I'll go get 3 yards. And then the Bills, instead of getting 3 points, get 7. Obviously, it didn't work out yesterday because they did kick the 24-yard field goal. But in a game against, say, the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs, you might see the Bills up that aggressiveness a little bit more, which might be a good thing.
Yeah, and I'm totally okay with that as well. All right. Last thing offensively, and we will get to the defense. My gosh. already been here for an hour and 15. Thank you all for staying with us. Dawson Knox, that catch was awesome. Like I said this when it happened, like for as great a day as Josh Allen had, Dawson Knox saved his ass on that play.
Yep.
It's why we call it a team game, because on that one play where you might be off, your teammate can be there to help you. And Dawson Knox, one of his best friends, right there to help him make that catch. And it was another great play call because they kind of did like a fake sweep to the right side, and then he kept it and threw it. And when he threw it, I was like, that's like maybe a little too far. And he just made a great adjustment to basically tip it back to himself. It's just a great play by Knox. It really was.
Yeah, he's now 5th on the team in receiving yards too, at 285, which is a somewhat low number you'd think for a top 5. But the Bills have 9 players with 200 receiving yards, so that helps inflate Josh's stats a little bit. But yeah, Knox, look, if he doesn't make that catch, we might have a very different demeanor today on this here show, because the Bills might not have a win on the record. They might have a loss. Knox with a really clutch play, and for a player who's kind of been much maligned for his hands, a play like that is a play you love to see him make. I really, really think he's an integral piece of this team down the stretch too. Dalton Kincaid coming back is nice. I still like Dalton Kincaid. I still am waiting for that breakout game from him. It will come at some point. I truly do believe it will. But having Dawson Knox as a blocker and an extra piece in this offense only makes them more dangerous. Like, you can run 12 with Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid, and you can be successful out of 12.
100%. All right. Defensively. So, Jared Goff finishes with 494 yards passing, 38 of 59, 5 passing touchdowns. Amon-Ra St. Brown has 14 catches for 193 yards. Sam Laporta has 7 catches for 111 yards. So, and obviously they finished with 42 points. So, the Lions offense, which we knew was good coming into this game, going against a defense that had both starting safeties missing and a starting corner missing, took advantage of that. Like, you had Cam Lewis and Cole Bishop playing safety. And Cole Bishop, actually, I felt played pretty decently. I mean, he ended up cramping up from what I heard and having to leave the game, which, like, eat a banana, dude. Come on. Like, I don't know how they do things in Utah, but, like, eat a banana. All right. And Cam Lewis is Cam Lewis. God bless him. But, like, he is who he is. He's not tackling Amon-Ra St. Brown in space. That's just not what's going to happen. And I think that, yeah, the Lions scored a lot of points, but the defense made a number of, like, the stops that they really had to have. I felt they made those stops. First of all, they just needed to have a stop early on in that game, and they got it right off the bat, getting a 3-and-out on the first drive. Like, that was like, okay, it's not going to be like last week. We're already better than what we started with last week. Cool. I think that in itself was just like a big confidence boost to, like, okay, we're in a better position. We can do something here. We're not automatically shooting ourselves in the foot. Cool. And they got some other stuff, and they got, like, a turnover as well. And they're plus 18 in turnover margin, which is the best in the NFL, right? Am I remembering correctly?
I believe so.
Yeah. And for as, like, not fluky's the wrong word, but, like, turnovers are somewhat luck dependent, right? Just how the ball bounces to or away from you. Like, if the ball gets tipped up, all that sort of stuff. But it's not entirely luck dependent. And you know that because Sean McDermott teams with the Bills have been very good at getting turnovers ever since he's been here. And there's something to that. I don't know what exactly it is. I couldn't tell you for sure what it is, but they have been very good at getting turnovers. And unlike in previous years where Josh Allen is throwing, 10 interceptions or more, or fumbling the ball or whatever, like, he has a very, very low number of turnovers. So the turnover margin is super high in the Bills' favor right now.
Yeah, I mean the Christian Benford play was so nice too, because he tried to punch it out on the initial contact he made with, I think it was Tim Patrick, and then he just,
Amon-Ra.
or maybe it was Amon-Ra, but he
Yeah.
kept his hand moving. He still was trying to get to it, and at that point, the receiver was moving a good enough amount where it was a fumble. But I think also, like you said, the defense. Look, when you give up 42 points, the perception is going to be it was a bad game, because 42 is a lot of points.
It's a lot
but
of
when
points.
when you consider everything that led to that, and it is interesting today, a lot of talking heads are saying well, the Lions defense was really banged up. What do you want them to do? Like, they're going to give up 48 points. It's like, well, the Bills defense was pretty banged up too, and they lost Matt Milano during the game, and then they also lost Dorian Williams at one point in the game. So Balin Spector's on the field now, and like you said, Cole Bishop had to leave the game, and Kareem Jackson had to come into the game at one point. Like, the Bills were also dealing with a lot of issues in that second level, and they still made enough plays for the Bills to get this win. They forced 3 punts to the Lions, forcing 1 punt. They forced a turnover to the Lions, forcing 0. So if you put these two defenses on a level playing field, and to be fair, the Lions coming into this game, they might have been the number 1 ranked defense by DVOA. I might have that wrong, but I know they were at least top 5.
Yeah.
And the Bills defense is not a top 5 defense. They're still a pretty damn good defense. I think the one thing that excited me more than anything about this game, and there's a lot of issues this team has to clean up. And look, I don't care what they do against the Patriots, Jets. I'm not going to believe that all these issues are cleaned up when you play teams that are lowly teams like that, let's say. That being said, you hold this Lions team to under 50 rushing yards, you did something good. And that's what the Bills did. Yeah. No other team in the NFL has done that this year. Obviously, David Montgomery left the game at one point in time, but that is a credit to the Bills' ability to set the game flow by getting out to a lead early, which was dependent on the defense making stops early. So the defense does deserve some credit for this game, and not like, oh my God, they gave up another 40 points this game. Like, yeah, they did that, but they also did a lot of good things too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they did a lot of good things. They were able, especially on the defensive line, right? And this was something like right after the game that I'm glad was tweeted out by Next Gen Stats. So Ed Oliver, 10 pressures in this game, including a sack, and the play where he absolutely bowls straight through Frank Ragnow, who is one of the best centers in the NFL. I mean, that did things to me. I'm not gonna. That was unbelievable, because that led to a sack where Greg Rousseau was able to clean that up and finish that off. I mean, the defensive line was able to get pressure all game. It's why they were able to get a couple of critical stops against this Lions team. It was just, and I wrote about this in my recap. I was like, okay, so in 2 games where they're going against like the best teams in the NFL, in the Chiefs and the Lions, this defensive line has come to play. Why are they doing this against these teams and not the other teams? Like, it drives me crazy just thinking about that. It's like, we know you can do this because we've seen it against like your best competition that you could go with. Why are you not doing this against other teams? It drives me crazy, because I know that there has to be some sort of consistency. Like RJ says here, kind of mad at Oliver, because if he can do that, he should be able to be at least serviceable more consistently. And I think serviceable is a lot. He's been serviceable at worst, if we're being honest. But he should be playing better this year. I think that there needs to be way more consistency with the defensive line as a whole, for sure. But like, you just hope maybe something happens in the playoffs where they haven't shown up more often than not in the last couple of seasons. And if that happens, like if we're gonna really be, if we're going to be intellectually dishonest here, right? Like, if we're going to project, like, Well, if they only show up in the really big games and the playoffs are really big games, they're ready for the postseason, everybody.
Yeah, man. Dude, Ed Oliver's frustrated me this year because, like you said, when I watched that Chiefs game, I saw a force, like an NFL level freakish force. I'm like, why can't I have that every single week? And coming into this game, I think I even put in my preview or maybe even discuss on the show or something like, I need Ed Oliver to show up. I need him to, because I need that force in the interior. That's we had a lot of things need to go our way, but one of them is Ed Oliver needs to show up. And he showed up. And you brought up that Frank Ragnow, like him blowing Frank Ragnow back. I don't think people appreciate how good Frank Ragnow is because of the existence of Jason Kelce in the NFL for so long. Kelce was a perennial first-team All-Pro that was the best center in the NFL, and everyone was second to him. The reason for that is Jason Kelce might go down as the greatest center of all time and one of the greatest offensive linemen ever. I'm just actually looking, and in his final 7 years in the league, he won first-team All-Pro 6 times. Frank Ragnow last season was the second team All-Pro. So he was the quote-unquote second best center behind arguably the greatest center of all time. He's probably going to be a first-team All-Pro this year, and Ed Oliver made him look like a child. Absolutely blew him up. And you don't get got a lot when you're that quality of player. Oliver got him not just once, but multiple times, blowing him back. It's just that highlight when he put him on his back. Look, if Oliver doesn't show up against the Patriots and the Jets and the Patriots and the Bills still win those games, am I going to be frustrated? Yeah. But if he shows up in the playoffs, if the Ed Oliver we saw yesterday and the Ed Oliver we saw against the Chiefs shows up in January against playoff teams and hopefully in February against one more team, I don't give a damn what he did the entire year. And he has the talent and he has the ability to do it. I just need him to do it in the big moments. And so far this year, like you said, he's done it in the two biggest games. So, it's exciting. I was really happy with the defensive line play yesterday.
Yeah. Hopefully that continues. We'll see. Other than that, I mean, a lot of injuries coming into this game, then more injuries throughout. Obviously, Dorian Williams leaves the game. They put in Balen Spector, and it's like as soon as Balen Spector entered the game, the Lions were like, that guy. Let's go after that guy. And they did a lot. And that, I think, contributed, especially in the second half, really contributed to a lot of the Lions being able to sustain a lot of their drives. In fact, I think at a certain point it got so bad that they brought Dorian Williams back in and were like, hey, I know you're hurt, but like you kind of have to go back in there. Cole Bishop, like we said, cramping, like eat a banana, dude. Matt Milano, did he get hurt during the game?
Yeah, it was a groin injury, apparently.
Okay.
No.
Yeah. Two big balls, I guess. I mean, it was not, I'm not going to sit here and say it was some like great revelatory performance by this defense because it wasn't, but it was better than what they were last week against the Rams. They were able to get a couple of stops. They were able to get a turnover. Like they did what they were supposed to do. Like maybe the bare minimum, but it was enough. And I think that they also knew that they could take advantage of a depleted Lions defense. I know there are people in this chat who are very upset with this defense still. That's fine. You're allowed to be. I'm not going to sit here and tell you how you can feel. I think it's just the fact that your defense now has looked better in spite of the number of points that were scored. And I think that moving forward down the stretch in these last couple of games, it'll give them some chance to kind of reset some things. And what's also encouraging, at least to me, was the fact that they definitely brought more blitzes than they have in previous games,
100%.
like for sure. And especially early on, they brought a double corner blitz. I don't think I've ever seen Sean McDermott call a double corner blitz. I've seen coaches do it. I know it exists. I loved running that when I was like 14 years old playing Madden because it was ridiculous and fun. But I'm struggling to think of a time where the Sean McDermott Bills brought a double. Certainly not with Leslie Frazier. That's for sure.
No.
But man, that was just so cool because I saw Ben forget that was his first sack in his career, but then like on the replay, I was like, they brought both corners. That's amazing.
Yeah. Dude, it was that was the other thing I wanted to see. I wanted to see them embrace the chaos, and early on they truly did. They're like, look, they didn't necessarily have the horses to match up with that offense. Like from a talent perspective, with the injuries Buffalo was dealing with, they did not have the pieces to match up one-on-one with that offense. So the only way to do it was to create utter chaos. And when if you're sending a double corner blitz, you're trying to induce chaos. And they did early on. The Lions were all messed up early on. They didn't know what was going on because the Bills were doing things that they haven't done. And so there was no tape on it. Now there's going to be tape on that, but at the same time, it's still not a tendency of the Bills. So the Bills can still sneak up on you with that in the future. It's not like they showed it once. Oh, it's gone forever. I thought that was exciting to see that Sean McDermott and Bobby Babbitt both said, like, we have to do something different here. We can't just sit back and do what we always do. And it really worked out for them.
It did. It absolutely did. Anything else defensively you want to talk about?
No, I think, like I said, I know it's 42 points. I think it was better than the box score indicates. That being said, if they give up 40 points to Drake May, we're going to have a conversation. There's going to be a big conversation if Drake May puts up 40 on the Bills.
If Drake May puts up 40 on the Bills, I'm not sure I'll be able to like be on this show because I'll probably be getting my stomach pumped at the hospital. Like that'll be insane. And it will make me very nervous about the Patriots in the future. That being said, so I said at the top of the show, right, that I might have a certain take about the Patriots. And so before the season started, I think I said pretty easily that, like, in terms of the future, right, that I was more scared of the Patriots than probably any other team in the AFC East, right? The Jets were all in on trying to win right now. The Dolphins, I didn't feel great about moving forward just because they had so many questions and their roster construction is not very good overall. But the Patriots had Drake May, and I really love Drake May, and their defense has plenty of talent, and they have a ton of money moving forward that they can use to bolster what they have. I still believe most of that, but Gerard Mayo, man.
Oh yeah, it's not good.
It's not great. In fact, it's like, I don't know if you saw him getting asked about
Van Pelt.
Yeah, and it was something about like running Drake May at some point in the game, and like, you know, was that something that you would have done or you would have wanted done? Is like, was that intentional? And Gerard Mayo basically said, "Hey, you said it, I didn't." It's like, man, is this how you want to do this? Like, that's to me, you say that when you're either so annoyed at your offensive coordinator, but you feel like we've gotten this far, I'm not going to fire you with like 3 games left, but you're definitely gone at the end of the year, or you're feeling pressure from ownership that gave you this job, that let you inherit this job, that maybe you're trying to get out in front of them being like, hey, what's a reason we should keep you around? What is it you say you do here? Because we knew the Patriots weren't going to be good this year, and they haven't been good this year. They've won 3 games. They're very much in the bottom of probably every single person's power rankings. I mean, it's not very good. But man, it's gotten to the point of just like, they may feel a certain pressure to change things, and maybe they should, maybe they shouldn't. I don't know, but overall, this is just not very good for the Patriots right now. And Gerard Mayo does not, from the limited bits and pieces that I've seen of him in press conferences, especially recently, I don't know if he has like the leadership ability that you're supposed to have at that position.
Yeah, I think a Patriots' success this season was predicated on 2 separate things. If Drake May got onto a football field, he looked good. I think that's been the case, or showed flashes of possibly being good. The other thing was that Gerard Mayo acts like a head coach. Well, Gerard Mayo hasn't particularly acted like a head coach or been a particularly good head coach, nor has he really elevated, I think, any part of their roster. I wouldn't say he's made any single group of their roster better. So from that perspective, now the question becomes, you got your quarterback, your young quarterback. He looks good. The benefit of if you move on from Gerard Mayo, there's definitely some people out there that would be interested in going and coaching a young player that has the upside of a player like Drake May. So you probably could bring in some coach. But that being said, you're resetting after 1 year with your rookie quarterback, which always seems like an iffy strategy because now they have to relearn everything, whether it's a playbook, whether it's the cadences, whether it's just the way the whole operation works. That's a little bit concerning. You could see a step back, which would be a big deal because while Drake May's flashed good, there's been a lot of bad too. So if you see a step back from him next year, well, now just reset the whole thing over again and start with a new quarterback apparently. So the Gerard Mayo thing's a big deal. And I'll say this, maybe this is a hot take. The Patriots play the Bills 2 more times this season. They play them this coming week and in the final week of the season. I think that the Bills game might decide, both of those Bills games might decide Gerard Mayo's fate. If the Bills go in there and boat race them, especially this week, and then if in the final week, let's say the Bills are like, if we can get up big by half, we go up by 3 scores by half and put Mitch Trubisky. If they do that, if both of those games are blowouts, I think the Patriots might get rid of Gerard Mayo.
I think it's possible. I think it's on the table. And especially when we talked about Mike Vrabel, right? And if he's available, like, come on. Like, how do you not pull that trigger? I mean, we've seen what Mike Vrabel can do for you. He's been as a part of this organization before. It's one of those things where it's like, this is too obvious for them to not do it, but somehow they're just gonna not do it for some stupid reason. They're not gonna do it. And whether or not that's fair to Gerard Mayo, honestly, is a bit irrelevant. Like, you have to do what's best for your team, and unless you really feel like Gerard Mayo can grow into that position, you have to be willing to say, this is not working, and we need to do something else. And there's a guy out there who is a proven commodity in Mike Vrabel, and we're gonna go with that. And I think that
with culture building. Like culture building and process building, whatever phrases you want to do with upside. Every single player in Tennessee loved him, whether they were retired or they're still there. They talk about how integral he was to that team. And if you get rid of this guy, we're going to be way worse because of it. And lo and behold, they're way worse without Mike Vrabel coaching that team. So you have the player to go. You have the coach sitting and waiting, like you said, that was a part of your franchise. That literally, that's what he's best at, is he can bring you up out of the doldrums and make you a solid team. And that's all they need right now, because if you put a solid team, the Bills are proving this to some extent. If you put a solid team around a potential superstar quarterback, good things happen.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, you brought up Tennessee because of Vrabel. My gosh, that is a rough franchise right now. That's another potential one and done head coach, which is a shame because I actually liked Brian Callahan quite a bit as a candidate. I felt like he did some really good things in Cincinnati, like especially when Joe Burrow was not healthy for some of the games in the last couple of years. It's just the way that they game planned around the quarterbacks that they had. It was impressive. That just has not been the case for his time in Tennessee right now. I mean, it's not like Nate Hackett in Denver bad, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not like completely abysmal and embarrassing in that sense, but it's not that far off either. Like, they're just not very good right now. And they spent quite a bit of money this offseason and did a lot to try and like make themselves a competitive team. Just, yeah.
He's also got the goofiest boy that's ever lived quarterbacking that team. Doing like people say, Josh Allen's a golden retriever when he plays quarterback. Will Levis is like a puggle. Like I don't know what's the dumbest dog you can think of, because that's what he is. He's the goofiest boy. He's a horse.
Horses are so freaking dumb. If you put a bag over a horse's head, it will just lay and go to sleep because it thinks it's night out. It will not try to like take the bag off the head. It won't do anything about it. It'll just be like, oh, it's night out. Good night. Whatever. Dumb animal. Anyway.
Well, that's about what Will Levis is, man, because he is, jeez.
God bless America and all the ships at sea. He is not a good QB. And we're going to end it on a rhyme there. Folks, thank you for joining us for the Cover One Roundup. It has been a delight to have you all here, especially on a fantastic Victory Monday like today. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a like on your way out. If you haven't done it already, share this with your friends, enemies, lovers, and neighbors. Listen to us on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, really. Like us on there, leave 5-star reviews. It is very, very helpful to just support us in every way. Thank you all for joining us tonight and being active in the comments. It's always so nice to be able to see people, and especially new people. It's fantastic. We really appreciate all of you for joining us. Again, this show is brought to you by Cover One Pass. It is our direct subscription feature for Cover One. It is the best way to support us. It's the best way to interact with other Bills fans who are like you, who want to get into some of the nitty gritty. Like, it's a lot of fun. It's a great group of people. You get all sorts of great information, and you learn a lot about football. Whether you want to or not, you'll learn a lot about football with this group. So it's totally worth it. It's the best $60 a year you'll spend on football. Sign up at cover1.net. It's totally worth it. Uber, where can the people find you?
On Twitter at UberHansen. I'll be dropping rooting interest on Wednesday and then a matchup preview on Friday on both Reddit and Twitter. So you can find the article posted directly on Twitter at UberHansen.
You can find me at DFAUXY or at DFoxy on Twitter. I also write for Buffalo Bills on SI, doing post-game recaps and the occasional article here and there. I will actually probably be working on a coaching cycle article because, man, there's already been 3 coaches that have been fired, and I think there's a lot of coaches that I think are on the hot seat right now.
Yeah.
And Gerard Mayo being one of them, Brian Callahan being one of them. Like, it's a lot of coaches on the hot seat right now. So it's going to be a very interesting cycle, especially with not a lot of candidates being available, including Bill Belichick, who took the UNC job, which is still astounding to me. Anyway, thank you all for joining us. We will see you all next week, hopefully after yet another Victory Monday. Thank you all for joining us. We will see you all next week. Bye-bye.